So Luke and I are back with Redroom 78.
Wow.
Just keep just keeps clicking, and we are live on the Phoenix RIA, our two YouTube channels, and Luke's Facebook page as well. But we today wanted to jump in the conversation about the new wholesaling law in South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
And basically, what that says is that if you are out there marketing and you put a house under contract with earnest money, which is called equitable interest, you can no longer advertise that property for sale, like on your website or like I use an email list to advertise properties that I have that I'm wholesaling for sale. That is no longer allowed. That's against the rules, against the law, cannot be done anymore. So, and states have been, kind of cutting down. Like Arizona now has a disclosure law that you have to
Yeah.
disclose if you're going to wholesale a property. So you got to say, hey, Mr. and Mr. Seller, we do some fix and flips, we do some Airbnbs, but one of our investment strategies is we may actually wholesale the property to another investor.
Right.
And what scenario might work for that is I might get a lead in, Prescott, Arizona, and I'm
Hey.
hey, I don't want to do this deal. It's in Prescott, Arizona. I don't have the crews. I don't have anything like that. But I paid for the lead. I had my acquisition guy make the phone call, build the rapport, do all that stuff. But I know Luke is up in Prescott, Arizona, and he would be way more efficient than I would be at doing that deal.
Absolutely.
But there should be compensation for, finding that deal and delivering to Luke. And usually it's the other way around. It's usually Luke finding the deal and delivering it to me. And I've seen some of his assignment fees, and I guess I should be mad when they're 40 or 50 grand.
No, you can't be mad about that. You got to be happy for that.
It's happy for you or happy for me?
Hey, for both. A deal's a deal.
No,
Chris,
no.
quick question. Is it better if I do it this way? Is it sideways?
Yeah, no, you're perfect. That way's perfect. Yeah,
Okay.
keep it going.
Cool.
Yeah, you're all chopped off. But so, and now there are some bad actors out there that are doing some stuff that maybe that South Carolina didn't enjoy. Like they're out there advertising, and one, they could be overpaying, right? So they overpay, they get the contract, and then they put a memorandum of interest on the property, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they don't close it, but they let that memorandum of interest just sit there, right? And are looking for a payday in the future for something that they didn't even do.
Unfortunately, there's far too many people that do that.
So that is kind of issue number one. And then obviously issue number two is just people are paying too much for a property because they don't understand the business, right? So then they get Mr. and Mr. Seller down the road, and they think they're closing in 30 days, and it gets to day 27 or 28.
The U-Hauls are already ordered. The U-Hauls are packed.
And they get nothing, right? Now they're just sitting there, and you probably dealt with some of those people yourself. Just like, hey, I thought I was closing in 30 days, and I'm sitting here with the U-Hauls, and I got nothing.
So we typically come to the rescue for those people because maybe they were dealing with us, and maybe they were dealing with someone else, and maybe the other person that they decided to go with because they offered them more money, maybe they went that route. And then, once they went that route, once that buyer could no longer perform, then they called us second and said, hey, the buyer pulled out on me. I'm in a tough spot now. U-Haul's packed. We've already got hotels lined up for the next week for us moving back to the Midwest or whatever it might be. And so we're stranded. What do we do? Is there anything you can do? And then that's when we'll come in and say, that's why my price was where it was, because that's where I had to be.
Yeah. So basically, South Carolina is tried to stop all this stuff, and so they basically made advertising the property without owning the property illegal. So I'm getting a lot of feedback on my mic. Is it my mic, or is it yours? Do you hear any feedback or no?
I don't hear any, but it's probably because I'm in my car and my AC
No.
is on. That could be
No.
it. Here's this better?
No, it's on me, so I was just checking. But
Oh no, you're good.
I didn't know if you heard any feedback on me, or if it's just
No, I don't hear any at all.
Okay, cool. So anyway, so South Carolina says wholesaling real estate without actually owning it is illegal, and there's been some. I mean, a bunch of people are throwing up on their IG, and they're talking about this problem. And actually, as if you were asked this, a couple guys have asked me, like, hey, what would this do to your business if it happened to me? And I'd actually welcome it, right? I'd be like, hey, bring it on. If I have to negotiate and close on every single deal, I'm okay with that. Like
because you know you're gonna beat most people. That's where it helps.
Yeah, I'm okay. Now there's going to be a transactional funding piece. I'm going to have to, whether I use my own money or I use somebody else's money. Maybe, I mean, the going rate for transactional funding is like 1%. But there's a lot of guys that don't even we said before you got online. There's a lot of people that don't even buy to wholesale. I mean, their main goal is to buy to fix and flip.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know how many of the home investor franchise guys you run across, but good.
We don't do much with them at all, in all honesty. I'm not sure. Are they 50-50 or are they predominantly flippers or?
No, so they're pretty much, I mean, because they spend so much for their contracts, they generally need to maximize the dollar, and they actually just, they get a contract and they're not getting a huge volume of contracts, so they generally buy to close, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of states where there's actually a transaction fee. Like Vegas, there's a transaction fee. If it transfers title, there's a fee for that, and I think it's like 0.5%. So, so it's costly to do a deal where you're going to just wholesale it, because you got to include that as part of the fee as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if your average wholesale is like $10K, and if it's like you just said, if you're paying a transaction fee of $1,500 or $2,000 or something, it gets pretty thin pretty quickly.
Yeah. So it's just I just kind of wanted to I mean, obviously, I think regulation is going to become more and more, right? So South Carolina did it. Do you think North Carolina isn't too far behind, or is Georgia and Tennessee also kind of very similar areas that they do some wholesaling at? And Luke's gone now, and
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So it's just interesting on is wholesaling here to stay? Obviously, there's like places like Chicago where you need to be a licensed agent. Oklahoma, I think, is the same. You got to be a licensed agent. So what do you think? How would it affect your business? I mean,
I think the biggest thing is like you said, I feel like the people that kind of know the ins and outs of the business, I think that they're always going to be able to stay ahead of the curve a little bit. Just getting blown up right here. I think they're always going to be able to stay ahead of the curve. But I mean, the biggest thing is I think that with us, because we do predominantly flip, I don't know if it's really going to affect us that much. If anything, I think that there's maybe a chance we'll get better deals because there's not that option for, I mean, if it did go this route, because there wouldn't be that option every single time for people to wholesale. So, I mean, if you're taking wholesaling off the table, I think that, people are going to be more willing to just be like, hey, we just got to get this thing, sold. And as soon as they find let's say an end user, someone like ourselves that are going to be willing to go ahead and take it on, they might be willing to take that risk, because if they're knowing that it's not going to be able to get blasted to as many people in that sense, it might make it easier.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, they didn't get rid of assignment fees. They just got rid of assignment fees for a profit. So I could still get a deal under contract and assign it to you. I just can't do it. I can't do it through because obviously you go through a title company and
Yeah,
you see an assignment for a profit and they're going to go, hey, this is against the law. That doesn't work. Now, I'm sure if I assigned you a deal and you and I have done enough deals, that you'd be like, all right, Chris,
we can work something out.
we can work something out, right? But if you don't have, so this might have really affected you as you're starting out working for, like, going away from when you first went away from Brent and you just started cold calling, right?
Right, absolutely. That would have made a huge difference, because when you're first getting started, that's when you're not necessarily in a position where you might not have the contractors, the crews, the knowledge of, flipping, of knowing exactly what you need to do. You might not have the funds, to be able to take these properties down. You might not have the connections to have, the hard money lenders that are willing to give you loans. So it would definitely make it more difficult if you were in that, in that sense, for sure.
Yeah. So basically what they did is they restricted the barrier of entry to, I guess, kind of the new guy, the guy that's taken the class from a guru, or, trying to, get his foot in the door and trying to learn this wholesale piece. Cause that's the easiest barrier to entry, right? And the easiest way to create cash flow, right?
Absolutely. No question about it. I personally think you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't go the route of wholesaling before you start flipping, because I think that when you start out with wholesaling, when you go that route, I think that you are learning the ins and outs of the business, right? And so if you skip that, and you go straight to flipping, it might be a little bit more difficult for you to understand, when a wholesaler wants to rip 10K or 20K or 50K, you might not have that same, I guess, heart for them of like, I'm not going to let you make 40K because that's maybe what I'm going to make on the flip. And it's like, yeah, but you also didn't spend the marketing dollars to get that deal. So I think that once you've done wholesaling before that, then you understand, you're like, a deal's a deal, kind of that conversation we had at the beginning. A deal's a deal. So it's like, I don't care. We'll pay someone a $300,000 assignment fee if I'm getting the property and I know that I'm gonna have my margins on it, and I know it's a deal for myself. It doesn't. I could care less.
Yeah. People forget that there's marketing. You got to, first of all, learn how to market. You got to spend the marketing dollars. Then you got to do the sales conversion, which most people just flat skip and forget about, like,
or drop the ball.
What do I even say to the seller when I actually get a lead, right? And not converting leads, like if you're converting 1 out of 20 leads, like, versus what do you guys convert? Probably 1 out of 7 to 1 out of 10.
I mean, it just depends on if it's if it's a PPC or PPL, something like that. Yeah, we're on average right now probably 1 out of 12ish.
Yeah. And then that's just because there's some bad leads in there, right? So I mean,
absolutely, not even a question. Yeah.
And you can't do anything about that. So, interestingly enough, I don't actually see it as a problem. I think what South Carolina did is they just cut the guy that's trying to start out of the business. They actually, they made it difficult for the guy that's, just took, some guru's class and then, so with that being said, you're going to need to take a guru's class that teaches virtual wholesale, because you're going to have to go somewhere else to start wholesaling.
Yep. No, absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
And so, yeah, but for the experienced investors, because like, you don't actually even blast a property when you wholesale it, right? You call like 10 guys.
Yeah. We've kind of got, I would say, 7 to 10 main buyers that we use for properties. And we typically have a pretty good idea of, what they're looking for. So, you might have some buyers that want multifamily. You've got other buyers that, love the East Valley. You've got other buyers that, love luxury. So, you got different buyers for different things. And so, and then obviously we always send stuff to you guys as well. So it's like, all right, we know that, we this gets blasted on SWH's list, or we send this to Chris and Jack and Tim and those guys over there. It's going to get moved, So, I mean, that's how we've done it for the past 6-7 years now. So.
Yeah. So once again, this probably wouldn't necessarily even affect your business. You take down what do you say, 75% of the deals that you deal with, or
85 probably.
Okay, 85%. And then you wholesale some stuff off in maybe certain areas that you don't want to.
Yeah, we've got areas we don't want to flip in. We've got areas we don't want to keep rental properties in. So I mean, yeah, I mean, in general, we're like, yeah, if that's West Valley, we're not gonna take it down. We don't even want to. I don't want to be, I don't want to be driving to the West Valley when I'm in the East Valley. It's just personal preference. I'll go up to Prescott. I'll do Sedona. I'll do Flagstaff. I'll do Cottonwood. I'll do those areas because we go up there pretty much once every 2 weeks anyway. So it's not that big of a deal for us to go check on the projects when we're up there.
Yeah. But I mean, you can't dial in your marketing to just say, I mean, you can't even dial in. I mean, I'm sure on your PPC leads, you get stuff in California and Las Vegas,
Absolutely. Yeah. Not even a question.
Yeah. You can't even dial in your marketing to be like, I want to be even on just this side of Phoenix, let alone, So having the ability to wholesale the deals because you did the marketing, you did the spend, you did the acquisition, having the ability to wholesale that property is important.
It's very important.
So, I mean, you could do it word of mouth. Like you said, you got your 7 to 10 guys that you sell to. But I mean, so actually having relationships is going to be super important again. Because you just don't go out and build a database.
Correct. Yep, exactly. No doubt about it.
So that's what's happening in South Carolina, guys. It could be happening to a neighborhood state near you anytime soon, right? And it is just because there are some people that get in this business and they're new and they're learning and they're they're probably locking up properties too high. So they're leaving the seller hanging when they didn't get it sold. They put a memo interest on the property and don't cancel it because it's funny. I got a deal in Jacksonville and we opened title and and there was a memo of interest on it, and I got a call from the attorney is like, hey, there's a memo of interest. Here's the owner of the memo of interest. You're probably going to have to write this guy a check. Like, and this memo of interest was like a year old, but this attorney started the conversation like, hey, you're probably going to have to write this guy a check. Now, I did get him to release it, so I didn't have to do that. But these are the problems that have caused a state like South Carolina to go this route. And it's just there are some bad actors out there, and it's just
no doubt about it. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, it's gonna make things very interesting, and unfortunately, like we said, I think it's gonna make it more difficult for the more inexperienced. Another thing that I just thought of when you were mentioning that is that if you are just wholesaling and you're not flipping, it's also more difficult to know how to run numbers for when you are selling it to a flipper. Because I mean, that's one thing that we notice a lot is as predominantly flippers, you get deals sent to you so often that you're like, this does not pencil at all. Like it's not even remotely close. And, the problem is that, some of the beginners, and again, this is not to discourage you. It's just to say that, the more time that you spend in the industry, you're going to learn. But like when you get a deal sent to you that, someone might say, oh, renovation is $25K, and then you're like, okay, well, it needs a new AC, it needs a new roof, it needs new windows. That's $25K right there. And that's not touching the inside, And so I think that that's kind of what's going on is that they may run their numbers fairly lean. And then by the time they actually start sending it to the people that are actually flipping and they give the real numbers of like, no, this is a $55K renovation, that's that $30K difference right there. And so That's why people are having to cancel. That's why wholesalers are getting a bad name, a bad rap with these sellers. So I mean, again, it's a learning experience, but you gotta do what you can to try to learn the game as best as you possibly can.
Yeah. So that's a little bit about South Carolina and some thoughts on that. Obviously, if you are stick around with Phoenix RIA, we'll keep you updated, and as stuff changes, and we'll keep you updated on stuff. And actually, I just thought before we check out, there is a guy that does have an installment method that what he's putting into South Carolina, and basically what that is, he gets a lead inbound and he buys it as an installment. So he negotiates with the seller. I'm just going to use some round numbers. It's worth $300. He negotiates with the seller at, call it $200. And what he does is when that comes in, he's like, all right, I'm going to give you an installment payment. Let's call it $1,000 when we get clear title. So he gets the contract. Clear title comes from the South Carolina is a lawyer state, so he gets clear title from the lawyer, and he gives the seller an installment payment and maybe multiple installment payments. I'm just going to use $1,000, and for that installment payment, he's going to get put on title with the seller. Now, what that does is now that gives him the ability, because he's on title with the seller, to wholesale the property. Now, hopefully he's built enough rapport and all that kind of stuff, because as we know, with sellers, it doesn't always go the smoothest.
Right.
So I'm sure there's going to be some pieces of the puzzle that come out after multiple transactions that have been done, and what rights does he have, all that stuff. But what that does do is he's actually given the seller some money and not just put it at the title company.
For sure.
So, but like all new items, it's out there. It's something that they're trying to do, but I'm sure there's going to be some sellers that maybe don't feel good about it down the road, because some sellers just have amnesia, right?
Oh yeah. No question about it.
I'm sure you got some amnesia stories from some sellers over the time, right?
Well, the thing is, I mean, every seller, what it comes down to again is checking in with your sellers regularly. Because I mean, you might have some of those closings that are a week, but you might also have some other closings that might be 3 months. And so the thing is it's all in the expectations. It's all in how you carry that conversation throughout the entire transaction of the sale. If you just do the one call, you lock it up, and then you never talk to them again, yeah, they're going to start wondering. They're going to be a little worried. But the thing is if you're setting expectations correctly, right? Whether that's, hey, you're going to now be speaking with my transaction coordinator that's going to carry you through the rest of the transaction. Or if you're saying, hey, you're going to be hearing from title, and then have your title company reach out to them about, opening escrow. So, I mean, again, it's all setting expectations the correct way. And obviously that's extremely important. When you do that kind of stuff, that's when you get the sellers that are going to say, you know what, this was a really clean and easy transaction. I really appreciate you. And now what I'm going to do because of that is I've got a friend who's selling their property, and I'm going to give him your information. So, I mean, like, people, you can't look at things. So a lot of people look at things very transactional, just like a quick close and that's it, right? But some of your best deals you'll ever get are going to come from referrals, and referrals are only going to come if you truly take care of your client. So
yeah. So we've got a question. Can't you just double close when you have your end buyer in place? And the answer to that question is yes, you can double close. The problem is what they're saying is you can't advertise the property if you just have it under contract. So so if you just have a contract with earnest money, you're like, and they're saying the fine is $20,000. So
woo! You better hope you wholesale that for more than $20K.
Right. So, but yeah, just Anyway, stick with us here at the Red Room in Phoenix RIA, and as stuff changes, as stuff moves around, we'll talk about what's happening, what solutions there may be, and we'll just try to stay on top of everything as it changes.
Absolutely, we'll be keeping up with you guys on as things change for us as well, if they do.
So thanks for joining us again, and we'll see you soon.
Yes, sir.
See you, Luke.
See you, Chris.